I manifested $68 million by repeating 3 words, and these words were not chosen at random. They were not born of desperation or empty hope, but from the secret knowing that the word spoken with conviction shapes the invisible substance of life. The treasure house of the infinite is not locked away in some distant realm. It is within, waiting to respond to the decree of faith. When I spoke these 3 words, I was not pleading, I was not wishing, I was declaring a truth as though it already existed. For the unseen responds only to certainty, never to begging, and the law of manifestation bows only to those who speak as if the promise has already been fulfilled. The mind is the great womb of creation, and every word sown into it with feeling becomes flesh in the outer world. I did not need to see the millions in my bank account to know they were mine. I only needed to align my imagination with the possession of it. I felt the weight of it, the freedom of it, the expansion of it. I walked as though my pockets were already overflowing, as though abundance had already clothed me. Each time I spoke the 3 words, I clothed myself in the consciousness of wealth, and that consciousness is the only substance needed to draw the form into being. It is not about the numbers. The 68 million was simply the form my spirit chose to express the power of these words. Someone else may receive love, healing, restoration, or reconciliation through the same principle, for the law does not discriminate. It only echoes back what you impress upon it. I whispered the words in the quiet of night, when the outer world was hushed and the gates of the subconscious swung wide. I repeated them upon waking, when the mind is most tender and receptive. And I carried them within me in the day, not as a hope, but as a reality already secured. And then the invisible hand went to work. Paths appeared where before there were none. Ideas came alive that carried the seed of fortune. Opportunities aligned themselves with precision too exact to be coincidence. The millions unfolded not through toil, not through strain, but through the natural outworking of a mind married to its desire. Those 3 words became the bridge from thought to substance, from unseen to seen. Understand this, it was never the amount, it was never the words alone, but the faith, the feeling, the acceptance behind them. For every man carries within him the power to call things that are not as though they were, and to watch them rise before his eyes. The treasure is already yours, hidden in your own consciousness, awaiting the command of your voice. When you speak with conviction, when you embody the end as if it is already secured, the whole universe bends to make it flesh. The spoken word with conviction shapes the unseen into reality, for the word is not a mere sound, but the living seed of creation. Every syllable breathed out with belief carries within it the power of form, the unseen energy that fashions itself into experience. When a man speaks without conviction, his words fall like lifeless shells, empty vibrations lost in the air. But when he speaks as one who knows, as one who feels the weight of certainty behind every utterance, those words go forth as commands into the hidden chambers of the mind, and the mind, being the womb of creation, receives the seed and nurtures it until it bursts forth as visible fact. This is the reason so many speak without result. They speak from doubt. They speak as beggars rather than as possessors. They call with faint voices instead of commanding with authority, and so nothing responds to them. But when the voice of man matches the conviction of his heart, then the invisible substance of life rushes to obey. The unseen is not deaf, nor is it distant. It is attentive to every decree. It is as if the universe is a great mirror, waiting for the command spoken with feeling to give it form. Words are more than letters strung together. They are the vibrations of thought clothed in sound, and the vibration you send out is the vibration that must return to you. The one who speaks as if he already holds the thing he seeks is the one who finds his words clothed in matter, for he has impressed the invisible with a living picture that cannot be denied. To say, I have, with trembling doubt is to plant a weak seed, but to say, I have, with unwavering conviction is to plant a mighty oak, and in due time the harvest is sure. It is not enough to simply speak, one must feel the truth of what is spoken. Conviction is the breath of life to the word, and without it, the word remains dead. The mind knows when the tongue lies, for it reads the feeling behind the words, and it only responds to what is believed. You cannot declare wealth while secretly entertaining poverty in your imagination, nor can you speak health while holding sickness in your mind. The spoken word, married to the feeling of its truth, is what shapes the unseen. The moment your word and your conviction become one, the unseen world bends itself to your decree, aligning events, circumstances, and opportunities in such a way that your word becomes visible reality. The creative law is impersonal. It does not decide what is possible or impossible for you. It only reflects back to you the conviction of your own speech. That is why the weak in spirit never see their desires fulfilled, while those who speak with authority are often astonished at how quickly life rearranges itself to match their utterance. It is not a question of effort, nor of deserving, nor of chance. It is only a question of whether your words are spoken from the shallow lips of doubt or from the deep well of faith. Every great change in life begins with a spoken decree, for the word is the spark that ignites the invisible into movement. When you realize the power held in the tongue, you no longer speak idly. You no longer allow careless words of lack, fear, or defeat to pass from your lips, for you know that every word sound must return with its harvest. You choose instead to speak words of wealth, of freedom, of victory, and most of all, you speak them with conviction, clothing each word with the energy of already having received. The unseen cannot resist such a decree, for it is law that the word spoken with faith becomes flesh. And so, the spoken word with conviction does not simply describe reality, it creates it, it molds it, it summons it from the invisible into the visible, and the life you live becomes nothing more than the outpicturing of the words you dared to speak with belief. Repetition of 3 words, with feeling. Align the mind to wealth, for the mind is not moved by empty sounds, but by the rhythm of belief impressed again and again until it becomes the natural state. The first time a word is spoken, it stirs the soil of consciousness. The second time, it begins to root itself deeper, and with continued repetition, the root becomes a tree, firm and unshakable. Repetition is the gentle hammer that engraves the truth upon the subconscious, and once engraved, it cannot be erased by doubt or circumstance. Every day, every night, I spoke these 3 words, not as though I were trying to convince myself of something uncertain, but as though I were affirming a reality already secured. And in this steady rhythm, the mind was carried into harmony with wealth itself. The secret is not in how loudly or dramatically one repeats words, but in how deeply one feels them. Repetition without feeling is like planting seeds in barren soil. Nothing takes root, nothing grows. But when the words are spoken with the full force of emotion, when the heart rises to meet the lips, the words enter into the hidden place of the subconscious and are received as truth. The subconscious does not argue, it does not question, it only accepts what is repeatedly impressed upon it. And once it accepts, it moves all things to bring the outer life into alignment with that impression. This is why those 3 words, spoken again and again with genuine feeling, became wealth in my world. I did not repeat them to beg for money. I repeated them to embody money, to feel money, to dwell in the consciousness of already possessing. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity becomes identity. What you say often enough, you begin to believe, and what you believe, you inevitably become. The mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what is consistently affirmed as real, and so it surrenders to the rhythm of your words. Each repetition was a brushstroke painting a clearer picture of wealth within me, until the image was no longer distant, but the only reality I knew. The more I spoke those words, the more natural they felt, and the more natural they felt, the faster they clothed themselves in form. This is the reason so many fail. They repeat their desires like strangers, saying words that feel foreign, detached, unnatural, and then they abandon the practice before the subconscious has had time to be impressed. But when you persist, when you repeat until the words feel like your own heartbeat, then the subconscious yields and the outer world follows. The mind is like a musical instrument that must be tuned, and repetition is the tuning fork. Every time I repeated those words, I struck the note of wealth within me, and little by little, the discord of doubt and fear faded, leaving only harmony. Soon every thought, every feeling, every action began to vibrate with wealth, and life could not help but echo that vibration back to me. Opportunities appeared, ideas opened, paths cleared, and circumstances conspired in my favor, all because the mind had been aligned through steady repetition. What once seemed distant became inevitable, for the subconscious had been trained to accept wealth as its natural state. This practice is not bound by numbers or amounts. The words themselves were not magical, but the force of repetition with feeling made them alive. Someone may use 3 words to call forth health, another to summon love, another to attract peace, for the principle is the same. Whatever is repeated with conviction becomes engraved, and whatever is engraved becomes expressed. It is the law of life that what you impress upon yourself will always be pressed out into your world. By repeating 3 words until they became the very fabric of my being, I aligned myself so completely with wealth that the 68 million was not an extraordinary event, but the natural outflow of the state I had assumed. Imagination and acceptance are the bridge from thought to substance, for nothing ever appears in the outer world that is not first conceived within. The unseen world is the true workshop of creation, and imagination is its tool. To imagine is to clothe the invisible with form, to sketch in the mind the pattern that life will later weave into matter. Yet imagination alone is not enough, for many imagine while still doubting, many picture their desires while secretly expecting the opposite. The true key is acceptance, the willingness to take the imagined picture as reality now, not in some distant future, not after conditions change, but in the present moment. When imagination is married to acceptance, the invisible becomes inevitable, for the subconscious has received its instruction, and the law must fulfill it. To imagine without acceptance is to play with shadows, but to imagine and then accept the vision as your present reality is to stand on the bridge that unites the invisible with the visible. The mind does not wait for evidence before it moves. It creates the evidence. When I imagined myself in possession of wealth, I did not merely see numbers in a bank account. I felt the freedom of abundance, the ease of generosity, the power of financial liberty. I walked in my imagination as one already clothed in riches. But what cemented this vision was not the picture itself, but my acceptance of it as true now. I did not linger in hoping that one day it would come. I entered the state as though it were already mine, and in doing so I crossed the bridge from thought into substance. Acceptance is the act of surrender, the quiet confidence that what has been imagined is already accomplished. The mind, once it accepts, ceases to strive, ceases to question, and begins to rest in the assurance of fulfillment. This rest is not inactivity, it is faith in motion, for once the mind accepts the image, it directs every unseen force to align with it. Opportunities, encounters, and circumstances arrange themselves with mathematical precision, though the outer man may call it coincidence or luck. But those who know the law recognize it as the natural outworking of imagination accepted as truth. It is the law of cause and effect, but operating in the hidden realm where thought is the cause and experience the effect. Imagination without acceptance leaves the vision hovering in possibility, never clothed in form. Acceptance without imagination leaves the mind empty, with nothing to receive. Together, they are the perfect marriage. This is why daydreams seldom manifest, for they are pictures without possession, fantasies without faith. But when the dreamer accepts the dream as already his, he ceases to dream and begins to live, and the world around him is compelled to reflect that inner shift. The man who accepts wealth in imagination soon finds his actions, his ideas, and his environment changing to mirror that state, and though he may not consciously arrange it, the unseen law arranges it for him. The bridge from thought to substance is invisible, yet unbreakable. Imagination lays down the stones, and acceptance allows one to walk across. Many falter at the edge, seeing the vision but refusing to step onto the bridge, because the outer world does not yet agree. But the outer world is always a reflection of yesterday's belief. It lags behind. To demand proof before acceptance is to remain forever on the shore of possibility. To accept without proof is to cross into certainty, and certainty calls forth the proof. This is why the greatest changes in life are always born within, unseen by others, until the appointed time when the invisible becomes visible. The riches I received were not created outside of me. They were drawn out of the infinite supply that is always present, waiting for a mind to imagine and accept. It is not the world that gives wealth, it is consciousness that brings it forth. Imagination creates the picture, acceptance secures it as fact, and then the bridge is crossed and the invisible takes on flesh. Every man holds this bridge within him, and every desire waits to be carried across by the one who dares to imagine and accept. The universe responds only to faith, never to begging or doubt, for the law of life is impartial and exact, giving back to each man the state he inwardly assumes. To beg is to declare lack, to plead is to affirm separation, and to doubt is to deny the power that governs all creation. The universe has no ear for weakness, it only mirrors conviction. When a man stands and speaks from the consciousness of already possessing, the unseen forces of life rush to clothe his word with form. But when he cries out from emptiness, when he repeats his desire as though it is far away, he only engraves the absence deeper into his reality. Faith is the language the universe understands, and it answers only to the voice of certainty. Faith is not blind hope, nor is it mere positive thinking. Faith is the inward knowing that what has been declared already exists in the unseen and must show itself in the seen. It is the conviction that the end is secured even when every appearance contradicts it. To walk in faith is to close the door on doubt, to act and speak as though the promise is fulfilled now. The universe is bound by law to respond to such a state, for faith impresses the subconscious with images of completion, and the subconscious, in turn, shapes the outer world to reflect them. This is why one man can command abundance with ease, while another struggles in lack, though both utter the same words. It is not the words themselves, but the faith behind them that determines the harvest. Doubt is the great thief, for doubt cancels the seed before it can take root. To speak a word of wealth while holding doubt in the heart is like planting a seed and uprooting it each day to check if it has grown. Nothing can flourish under such conditions. The one who doubts does not trust the soil of life, and so he never allows the unseen to complete its work. Begging has the same effect, for begging declares distance between the speaker and his desire, reinforcing that it is not yet his. The universe simply reflects this state of separation, keeping the desire always just out of reach. But faith collapses all distance, for faith claims the thing as already present, and in doing so makes it so. The measure of faith is revealed not in words but in feeling. To declare wealth while feeling poor is to speak without power, but to declare wealth while feeling the joy and freedom of it is to set the law in motion. Faith is feeling the reality of the unseen before it appears, and the feeling becomes the magnet that draws the outer conditions to match. This is why faith cannot be faked, for the subconscious knows the truth of the feeling, and it only responds to what is genuinely believed. The man of faith carries himself differently, speaks differently, and walks differently, for he has already accepted the unseen as his own. The universe reads this state and arranges itself accordingly. To live in faith is to rest, not to strain. The man who knows does not worry, he does not wonder how or when, he simply continues in the state of possession, and the unseen unfolds the way. Faith frees the imagination, opens the door to inspiration, and attracts the right people and circumstances as though by invisible design. There is no force of resistance that can oppose a man who is anchored in faith, for faith is alignment with the creative principle itself. The law is impersonal, but it bends to conviction, and faith is the highest form of conviction. To stand in faith is to command the invisible, and to command the invisible is to rule the visible.